Dr. Sam.
Good morning, all. Thank you very much. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Education and Second Vice President, Dr. Rupert Narayan, and Minister within the Ministry of Education, Ms. Nicolette Henry, our Permanent Secretary, Ms. Delmaned, and the officers of the Ministry of Education to present to you the results of the 2015 National Grade 6 Assessment as presented to us by the Superintendent of Exams, Ms. Sadia Kadir. The results of the National Grade 6 Assessment, written on the 1st and 2nd of April 2015, are currently being released to schools across the country. 15,225 candidates were entered for this assessment. These candidates also wrote the National Grades 2 and 4 assessments. The results being released give a report on the candidates' overall performance at these assessments. The National Grade 6 Assessment results will be available online for the first time from 5 p.m. this evening. Parents and students are advised to log on to the Ministry of Education's website, www.education.gov.gy, and the candidates' timetables will provide the necessary information to access these results. A percentage of the marks gained at the grades 2 and 4 assessments was combined with the marks gained at the grade 6 assessment in order to determine the candidates' overall scores. 5% of each candidate's grade 2 score in mathematics and English language, and 10% of the grade 4 score in the same subjects were added to 85% of each candidate's score in those subjects at the grade 6 assessment. The combined scores in mathematics and English were added to the scores gained in science and social studies to arrive at a final score. The highest possible standardized score obtainable were for mathematics 138, for English language 132, for social studies 132, and for science 133. The highest possible total score obtainable was 535. Region 9 is the most improved region in the country, with a 6% increase, which was noted in the performance of candidates securing 50% and more in all subject areas. With regards to the overall subject performance, there was an increase noted in mathematics, science, and social studies, and a slight decrease noted in our performance in English language. I will now proceed to read for you the top 3 performers in each region, and we will provide for the media the top 10 performers in each region in a packet to be released in a few minutes. Region 1. Our best performing candidate in Region 1 is Carlos Hernandez from Santa Rosa Primary, who was awarded a place at St. Stanislaus College with 512 marks. Second was Aurel Emmanuel from Mabaruma Primary, who is at St. Joseph's High with 505 marks. And third was Joel Griffith from Port Kaituma Primary, who was awarded a place at Port Kaituma Secondary with 484 marks. In Region 2, Davina Sutratan was the best performing student from Fisher Primary, who was awarded a place at Queen's College with 522 marks. Swasti Setu from Manor Primary and Kristen Richardson from the same institution were both awarded a place at Queen's College with 521 and 517 marks respectively. In Region 3, Shreya Prasad from the Academy of Excellence and Isabella Hussein from the same institution were both awarded places at Queen's College with 526 marks each. And Atishta Sunarayan from Eiffel Primary School was also awarded a place at Queen's College with 523 marks. In Region 4, Solomon Chiria from Success Elementary was awarded a place at Queen's College with 530 marks, along with Shania Eastman from the same institution, who received 529 marks, awarded also a place at Queen's College, and Celine Farina from Peters Hall Primary, who obtained 526 marks, was awarded a place at Queen's College. In Region 5, Lalchan Gajdar from Rosignol Primary was awarded a place at Queen's College with 522 marks. Anthony Sukra from Blaymont Primary was awarded a place at Queen's College with 521 marks, and so was Suraj Singh from Navar Primary with an identical score. In Region 6, Travis Isaacs from All Saints Primary was awarded a place at Queen's College with 525 marks. Daniel Sumra from Rose Hall Primary received 517 marks and was awarded a place at Queen's College. And Jahim Hudson from All Saints Primary was awarded a place at Bishop's High with 516 marks. In Region 7, Akeem Williams from St. John the Baptist Primary was awarded a place at St. Rose's High with a score of 505 marks. Zaria Henry from St. Anthony's Primary was awarded a place at 3 Mile Secondary with 495 marks. And Kishana Castello from St. John the Baptist Primary was awarded a place at 3 Mile Secondary with 492 marks. In Region 8, Lorianne Gildhari from the School of Excellence was awarded a place at Madhya Secondary with 478 marks. Stephen Balakaran from Paramakatoi Primary, as well as Condoleezza Williams from the same institution, were both awarded a place at Paramakatoi Secondary School. In Region 9, Renata Nikram was awarded a place at Bishop's High. She's from St. Ignatius Primary with a score of 516 marks. Serena Williams from Arapaima Primary was awarded a place at St. Ignatius Secondary with 501 marks, and so was Kerry Khan from the same institution. In Region 10, Nakeshi Lane from Regma Primary was awarded a place at Queen's College with 521 marks. Aziria Alikok was awarded a place at Queen's College with 518 marks, also from Regma Primary. Jasmine George from Wisma Hill Primary was awarded a place at the Bishop's High School with 516 marks. In Georgetown, Bidish Prasad from the New Guyana School was awarded a place at Queen's College with 525 marks. Rihanna McCurchin from St. Margaret's Primary was awarded a place at Queen's College with 525 marks. And Timur Singh from St. Gabriel's Primary, a wonderful institution, was awarded a place at Queen's College with 525 marks. The top 1% of our students receiving places in our, students receiving scores placing them in the top 1% emerged from all regions except Region 1, 7, and 8. The top 1% cohort was comprised of 72 males and 94 females. Gaining the top position with a score of 530 marks was Solomon Charia of Success Elementary. Second position was gained by Shania Eastman, also of Success Elementary, with 529 marks. The third position with a score of 526 marks was shared by Selena Farina of Peters Hall Primary, Shreya Prasad of Academy of Excellence, Region 3, and Isabella Hussein of Academy of Excellence, Region 3. The sixth position was earned by 5 candidates, namely Afifa London of Success Elementary, Travis Isaacs of All Saints Primary, Bidesh Prasad of New Guyana School, Rihanna McCurchin of St. Margaret's Primary, and Timur Singh of that school I mentioned, St. Gabriel's Primary. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the end of our presentation of results. I would like to thank our officers, the Superintendent of Exams, the National Data Management Agency, and all of the teachers and pupils and parents who would have worked assiduously to make this event possible. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CEO. Short presentation we did promise you, but dynamic and impacting on the lives of the few names that we heard. But of course, there are 15,225. So there's still a whole bulk that we will, in the course of the day, at 17 hours or 5 p.m., as CEO would have advised us, we can access on the Ministry of Education website. I know we were reserving our applause just now, so I'd like us all to give the students whose names have just been announced a rousing round of applause. I'm quite certain their parents are ecstatic, their teachers, administrators, and so well-deserved round of applause from us in the room today. And we do have many, many brilliant minds in the room, just looking across the room at the head table and, of course, seated in the room. And children, 15,225 written this year, who would have written the exams this year, must give their thanks to the great teachers who've been working with them. And you know what great teachers do, they mentor and they stimulate and they provoke and they engage and they facilitate learning. And someone who knows this very well is none other than our own minister, being a teacher in his earlier years, world-class professor and instructor of liberal arts. He's lectured at some of the most prestigious universities and learning institutions already. I've established he was educated at QC. What was your primary school, Minister? What school did you attend? I went to Enterprise Primary. I'm sure they're quite proud of you as well. And so, a doctorate in comparative literature. It's now my pleasure to invite the Minister to engage a few questions. It's now 10:16 until 10:30. Our Minister, of course, accompanied by other officials whose questions related to the National Grade 6 assessment you may have at this time. One question I'm sure many of you might be interested in is the performance of Region 9, most improved region. Could we have a round of applause? I'm biased as I'm from that region. And so, Minister, can I invite you for some comments, after which we will take the questions from the media.
Thank you very much. I want to say that what we're doing here at this ministry is by far the most important work that there is to be done in Guyana. I think we have agreed, and in my conversations with the President, we agreed wholeheartedly on this, that we can find all the oil in the world and dig all the gold we can find in the earth. But if we don't educate our citizens, we will go nowhere. What you've been doing is really something we can't begin to thank you enough for. And one of the things that I am myself very committed to do is to ensure that our teachers have the best facilities, are amply rewarded in relation to their salaries, and that we want to lift the level of teaching, counseling, and all other dimensions of our schools. This is the task I have set myself, and it's something I can only do with your fullest cooperation. As you've heard from the CEO, 15,225 pupils who have written the assessment in 2015 is down from the average 16,000 plus pupils who write annually. The overall numbers at both nursery and primary have been dropping. The Chief Planning Officer has predicted there will be a decrease in overall numbers of students enrolled in schools nationally based on the census data. Performances in mathematics, science, and social studies showed an increase, while English. This matter is being addressed both in relation to interventions at the primary level, and we have to target improved English language performance in relation to more effective assessment strategies as well. As it relates to the grade 2, 4, and 6 assessments, we're consulting with CXC the regional assessment body, to build capacity, to ensure that we have a basis of effectively gauging where our pupils are nationally and how they match up regionally. And my ambition in this, frankly, is to make Guyana the country that everyone else admires. A summary of how President's College is treated, we will deal with a bit later in the press conference. The highest possible score obtainable was 535 marks, and the top student attained 530. A list of the cutoff scores of the national schools and so on, including the President's College, is in the among the documents you will receive. Over the past 4 years, we've seen a wider national spread of the pupils earning places in our national schools. Pupils from all regions are now earning places in the 6 nationally allocated institutions. It indicates a trend towards greater equity across the country. However, more needs to be done in this regard. The final scores are an accumulation of a percentage of performance in the national grades 2 and 4 assessments in mathematics and English, 5% and 10% respectively, and the grade 6 assessment results. There has been an attempt to create a dichotomy, some sense of rivalry in relation to private and public schools' performance in the past, given that the private schools appear to outstrip the public schools in relation to the performance at the primary level. This difference can be attributed to a range of selective practices employed by the private schools. However, our position at the ministry has been that these are all our children, and we do not need to get into a debate about the public-private schools, especially given the fact that the reverse is evident at the secondary level in relation to CSEC, where the numbers are different. The 100 top students we are going to meet in the very near future, because I've had it said by some of my friends who have been engaged in education for a long time, that it's great that we honor the top performers, but frankly, we want to honor all of our students who made the effort. And let me say that these private schools, with all of their good results, their students have benefited from a grounding in our own schools. And that is part of the reason they're thriving. I don't want to say very much more, except to leave you with a charge that over the next year, the next 2 years, we are going to ensure that the Ministry of Education sets the standard in Guyana. Other ministries must look at the Ministry of Education and come and ask us, what are you really doing? How did you manage to do what you're doing? That's what we want. And you here have everything to do with the success of the ministry. I want to thank you very much for the work you've done in relation to the production of these results. I thank the teachers, I thank the students, I thank the parents, and as you know, I have my own views of how we can enrich our classroom experience, and I have to engage my friends in the Guyana Teachers Union to ensure that we are on the same page in relation to what teachers are expected to do. So I thank you very much this morning.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And at this time, we will invite the media with questions. We did say we were going to facilitate questions for about 10 to 15 minutes. And by virtue, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that this is being televised across Guyana, and so that we would love the questions to be heard as well. Media, you are going to be using one of the microphones, and then the head table, whomever will be answering from the head table will be using the other microphone. So we begin taking your questions. It can be directed to a minister or any of the other officials on the head table. Okay, Nazima will start us off.
Hi, Ragabir Prime News. The Chief Education Officer, in your comparative analysis between this year and last year, could you give a more detailed breakdown of the results? Gender, I know you spoke about the English language declining, and I am interested in the numbers, the students who may not have met the required mark to enter any secondary school. I know years ago there used to be some sort of remedial education or remedial school setup for those. Could you shed some light?
Thank you. All of our students are awarded places in secondary schools where possible. As you're aware, in the hinterland and some other pockets across the country, where we might not be able to offer a discrete secondary place, our students are placed in what are known as our primary tops, the secondary departments of primary schools. And our work over the last few years will continue to ensure that we attain universal secondary education. And the process that we've instituted has been bearing fruit, and we're certainly close to ensuring that all of our children have potentially a place in discrete secondary schools. Secondly, in relation to overall performance with regards to gender, we haven't completed the gender breakdown yet, but we can certainly provide that analysis. But as you are aware from initial indications, the girls continue to outperform our boys generally across the spectrum in all of the subject areas. But I did, as you said, allude to the fact that we've seen increased performances in all three subject areas except math, English, social studies, math, science, and social studies, and not in English language.
Could you shed some light on the President's College placement? I know the Education Minister pointed to that.
Sure. President's College has been the practice for the last 4 years, will be certainly awarded, places to President's College will be awarded to students across the regions 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 who earn the cutoff score to have residency at that institution. And that cutoff score this year is 493 marks. It's also been awarded to students in Region 4 and parts of Region 5 who have been awarded non-resident positions at that institution. And that has been the practice adopted at the ministry for the last 5 years.
Could you also, you noted increased performance in Region 9. Any particular reason? Have you been following, more teachers, more facilities, access to materials?
Absolutely. We would have expected improvements in the performance across the board in Region 9, largely because of our focus on teacher training in that region at the primary level, actually at both the nursery and primary levels. One of the programs instituted by CPC really focused on expanding our teacher training facilities across regions in this nation. Region 9 benefited the most of all the hinterland regions from that initiative, both in relation to the foundations program and the ensuing teacher training intervention. With a significant increase in the percentage of trained teachers, we would have expected to see a concurrent improvement in relation to the overall performance of our pupils, and we're now beginning to see that. So I would attribute it from this initial stage, after some deeper analysis, I might be able to give you a breakdown of all of the related factors, but from where we sit, we were expecting this based on our input in relation to teacher training in that region.
Thank you, CEO. We're still taking questions from the media.
Good morning. Good morning. Charmaine Granger, Kaiser News. CEO.
Charmaine, can I just invite you to stand a little bit distance away from the speaker, please? I think we're getting feedback from that.
Good morning again. Kaiser News, Charmaine Granger. CEO, you made reference to three not included in the top 1%, I believe 1, 7, and 8. Could you speak of the plans to improve the performances of these schools? And Minister also alluded to private school outstripping public schools. Could you say if there are plans to collaborate with private schools to adopt their approaches?
Okay. I mentioned that regions 1, 7, and 8 are not reflected in the top 1%. We really do not measure a region's overall performance based on their representation in the top 1%. There are other indicators that we look at in relation to their general performance. It certainly does speak to their ability to produce on a certain level, but that doesn't paint the entire picture. What we have noted and we continue to focus on is that the clear difference in relation to our coastal and our hinterland student pupil performances on all levels. There's work to be done to improve our output in the hinterland regions. Regions 1, 7, and 8 certainly require additional attention and focus. And certainly from our initial discussion with the Minister, this is something that he certainly has strong opinions on, and certainly we will devise a clear strategy in relation to how we certainly are going to move our agenda that we've already initiated. As you're aware, there's quite a bit we would have done to date to really improve our educational output in those regions. And I'm certain that we are going to even increase our strategies and our output in relation to that, because it is a critical part of our national education strategic plan. It's one of the major pillars of that plan. And certainly anyone who would have been familiar with the plan, and certainly we'll spend some effort on familiarizing everyone in relation to the things, the tenets of that strategic plan, so to just ensure that we get buy-in from all of our stakeholders. Now, in relation to your second issue with regards to private schools, again, we are not able in the private system, the public education system, to practice some of the things private schools have the latitude to employ. We've said this time and time again. We recognize that there are differences with regards to the approaches, but I think that when one looks at what happens at the secondary level, you can see a direct reverse of the realities that we've noted at the primary level. I don't think that there's value in us debating which is better, private or public. I think, as you suggested, we need to look at schools specifically to see what things they're doing and what works. And we've, in the past, engaged private institutions to have discussions on many of those approaches and strategies. And what we attempt to do is compile the best practices so that all of our schools have opportunities to excel. And as Minister pointed out, we really view all of these children as our own. And so we give the kudos to those institutions that have been able to dominate the top 1% over the past few years and might continue to do so. And we continue to support our public institutions in their drive to improve performance.
Mr. Rehan Ahmad, HGP Nightly News. We know that the exams were written under the previous administration. Are you satisfied with the outcome? And would there be any changes you would like to implement with regards to the way forward with these exams?
It's a bit early. Frankly, we are, at the moment, we have taken hold of the Ministry of Education. We are looking at all systems and making a full assessment across the board. There are going to be changes. My attitude has been, I said that to the staff of the ministry right at the beginning, what works, we will continue to do. What needs fixing, we will fix. What has not worked at all, we will abandon. So in general, what you can anticipate is the continuity of best practice. And I am absolutely certain, and I want to say, and you know, I had some advice from my predecessor over the last few days. I am receiving the fullest cooperation from the former minister, and both at the Ministry of Education and at the sports, youth, and culture. I think if we put our heads together, look at policies as they were formulated then, let us look carefully at what has worked and continue with what has been working. Anything that needs to be fixed, we are going to fix together. So my own anticipation is that the ministry will overall, after we complete our assessment, and it's early days yet, we've been in there for a couple of weeks, and mercifully, I'm surrounded by people who understand what is required much more than I do. I am planning myself an intense learning process as I go along, and I'm anticipating that the performance of the ministry across the board over the next year or two, I think you will see improvements where improvements are needed, and you will see changes where changes are needed. There will be no changes for the sake of change. There will be changes only for the sake of turning out, as I said in my remarks, the best possible Guyanese students for the 21st century.
Good morning, Minister. The Times. Talk about interventions to improve the performance in English. Could you say what are some of those strategies you'll be implemented or have implemented?
Okay, as you are aware, we would have certainly introduced our primary grade assessment processes for formative evaluation of our pupils a few years ago. We are certainly continuing to bolster that effort. As Minister mentioned, we're certainly getting expert opinions and some capacity building exposure to ensure that our assessments are help us more to plan effectively for the primary grades. Our literacy approaches have certainly been expanded. Our ACO Primary would have worked assiduously to provide some national awareness of our approaches and to get buy-in from parents and all stakeholders last year. As you can recall, over the period of Education Month, we disseminated quite a bit of information in relation to what we're hoping to have happen, not just in our schools, but in homes, in relation to our parents, supporting our efforts in relation to improving our literacy outputs in our schools. So we will continue to plug away in relation to those strategies and employ others that we deem to be beneficial. One of the things about education is that sometimes these results take a little while to bear fruit, but we are certainly very encouraged by the initial indications. This one-off assessment might not be a true measure of the total trend, but we're certainly looking at all of the indicators at the various levels, and we'll make corrections and adjustments as we go forward where necessary.
Robin Singh, Guyana. Sir, do you have any stats on the decline in English and how decline? One, and two, you alluded to earlier some of the practices that have been implemented by private schools that the public schools have failed to implement. Could you say what are some of these practices?
I never mentioned that there are any practices there that we failed to implement. In fact, when we would have met with private schools, one thing was very clear. They use our curriculum. They certainly would have asked me directly for some more support in accessing our curriculum material and other resources. For the most part, they use our teachers who in many instances move from public schools and go into private schools. There are some other dynamics there that certainly speak to the different outcomes that you might see. And I don't think that we want to get into, some of those practices. We would have dealt with them before. But clearly, private schools are able to do a number of things that we in the public system are unable to do. We are tied by certain prevailing rules and practices that certainly aren't as binding on the private institutions. Now, in relation to our literacy approach, our English language approach, we would have actually restructured a number of elements beginning from as low as entry-level nursery year 1. In relation to our diagnostics, our bolstering of our reading resources, our restructuring of some curricular approaches and pedagogical practices, we would have improved the transition from nursery to primary with a clear line in relation to our curricular interventions at the two levels, so there's a seamless transition there. We introduced a range of readers over the last year and textbooks. We certainly have bolstered our teachers' abilities and capacity with regards to continued training in relation to the delivery of the literacy hour, and a whole range of things that I mentioned to you we would have certainly spoken of on previous occasions. We will continue to adopt these strategies with a clear expectation that they will bear fruit over time. But as I mentioned before, these things take more time than one might certainly see or expect in other sectors. In education, it takes a minimum of 5 years for some of these things to be embedded and certainly show their effects.
Minister Rihanna Ahmad from Nightly. Perhaps I didn't get the first part of the question, the answer clearly, but are you satisfied with the outcome of the 2015 NGSA?
I am very happy that we've achieved what we've achieved. Frankly, there is more to be done. To ask me if I'm satisfied, no, I'm not satisfied. And it's not simply to say that, I'm complaining. I just believe that there's room for improvement, and we intend to do everything we can to make sure that when we meet in a year's time to deal with this matter, you will see improvements in the results.
It is 10:41. We have exceeded our 15-minute time allotted for the questions, but in the interest of ensuring that we have all the bases covered, we will take 2 more questions. We do know that our minister and our senior officers, they've got other matters to attend, and just to assure the media that the entire list of the top 100, as we heard earlier, will be given to you as well as emailed to all the media houses. And we are also aware that in addition to being heard and watched on NCN, those of you who have been following us online on the ministry website, and you also want to know the results, we remind you 17 hours, 5 p.m., the remaining results will be posted on the ministry's website. So 2 more questions to the head table, and then we will wrap up this short presentation.
Tanika Percival, Star News. You mentioned that you will be meeting with the top 100. May I ask what plans they are for the lower 100 or the lowest?
Hi, good morning, Ms. Daniels, Kaiser News. Just for the record, what are the pass rates for the 4 subject areas? We haven't heard any percentages listed. So for the listening public, how have the children performed this year?
Okay, the National Grade 6 assessment is not a pass-fail assessment. It really is a placement exercise. Our pupils are placed based on available positions in all of their institutions and based on their performance. As a result of that, no one passes, no one fails. This exercise really enables us to gauge where our pupils are and to assign them to an appropriate secondary institution. Now, it starts from the best performing student, whatever score that is, all the way down. And so there is no point where one can say, well, you passed and you failed. This is just an exercise to place students based on their performance.
Follow up? Can we facilitate a follow-up?
Okay, let's not say pass or fail, but specifically 50% of the marks are achieved? Because I know during previous revelations of the results, we would have heard, okay, we have 16% in mathematics, this percent in English. Are we abandoning that? What's happening there exactly?
We will do an analysis. In the ministry, we would have, as the practice would have been established, looked at 50% or more. We certainly will need to meet and discuss whether we want that as the benchmark in determining, as some of you deem it, pass or fail. And certainly once that analysis is done, we can certainly provide you with that information. But an overall analysis of performance would have indicated some of the things that I alluded to earlier in relation to discrete subject areas.
Thank you very much, members of the media. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of today's ceremony. Another biblical figure, adding to David and Moses, now Solomon, topping the country for 2015. We congratulate him and all the other 15,225 students who have sat the National Grade 6 assessment. Thank you, Honorable Minister, and of course, members of the head table and all other senior officers for being with us today for this occasion. Just as we started our program, can I now invite us to stand? This time we're going to be testing our vocal talents as we sing the first stanza of our national anthem. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Land of Guyana, of rivers and plains, made rich by the sunshine, lodged by the rains, set gem like on faith, between mountains and sea. Our children salute you, dear land of the free. Thank you. Have a good rest of this Thursday.